This is Counsel Cast, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy, your marketing co-counsel. In every episode, I discuss marketing topics with experts who answer your questions and help your law firm achieve next-level results. Here's today's guest.
Hi, I'm Reid Holmes, and I'm thrilled to be Karin's guest today. I am been called a marketing therapist by people I work with, but really I have a 30-year history in branding and strategy and advertising. I've worked on a lot of big brands from H&R Block to Toro to Burger King to Domino's Pizza to Mayo Clinic. And I've taken what I've learned over these 30 years and put it in a book called Appreciated Branding, which is over my shoulder for those of you who are watching, and became a bestseller on Amazon, which I'm very proud of. And I'm kind of out to just help brands be more effective by doing more meaningful work.
Awesome. Reid, we talked about this briefly, but this is one of my favorite topics. But before we get into it, I just want to say the title for the show is your law firm actually just bland? Which I feel like it's such a good play on words. I love it. And we're going to dig into appreciated branding, like what that is and how it works and why it's different from kind of what people typically think of branding. So let's start big picture, because I feel like there's so many places that people get branding wrong, just even in their general thought about what it is and how it works and how to do it. So where do you start with like just trying to steer people on course with how to think about it in the right way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I come from a world where I was a creative director for years and heard clients say, "Can you increase the branding on ads?" Which is,
Like, what?
it's kind of a big tell that you don't really know what branding is, because
Yes.
branding is not a logo. Brand is a visual identifier.
Yes.
Um, a logo is like your name in print,
Yeah.
but who you are as a person, how you behave, the associations people have with you, that's your brand.
Yeah.
And it's the same for brands as it is for people.
Yep.
So the expectations that people have of you, their familiarity with you, their familiarity with, can they trust you? Are you a risk mitigator for them in their lives, which is essentially what a brand is in many ways. It's, well, I know this entity and my taking a chance on this is mitigated by the fact that I know how they'll behave and who they are and what they
Yes.
do.
Yeah, I know what to expect. I don't have to sit and think through this decision as much because I have already got data points
Yeah.
on this brand that helps me expedite my choice.
That's right. And that's why brands command higher margins, because they make decision making so much easier,
Yeah.
because you're not risking your money
Yes.
on a fail. You're investing on more of a known outcome.
That's a perfect segue to what I was just thinking about for my next question is basically why should people care? Because before we start digging into the mistakes people are making and how to do it right and everything, let's talk about why they should even care about this. Because once again, going back to this logo idea, everybody thinks it's the pretty stuff. Everybody thinks it's just the visuals and maybe some sort of woo messaging and everything. But it's like, why do we spend so much time and effort? And you kind of were alluding to that a little bit in terms of how the decisions get made more quickly. But let's dig more specifically into what this means for the bottom line. Like, why does this actually matter to your law firm, to your bottom line? And how does it play out in terms of, like, in your experience with those bigger brands where it's done well and you can see the results?
Yeah. So the more people who know about your brand and know what it will what it will deliver,
Yeah.
the bigger your, what I call your success surface area. If all you do is spend your money on performance marketing, which is, hey, we're on sale,
Yes.
and you spend your money on that every darn time, your brand associations are, oh, well, I'll just wait till they're on sale again, because it's a
Yes.
commodity product. And I mean, one of the things that's happened with branding these days is I think it's changed significantly from
Yeah.
when branding really started in earnest, which I would argue is probably in the 50s, during the soap opera
Mad Men.
era. Well,
Yeah.
this was before the Mad Men of the 60s.
Okay.
This was when agencies produced programming. They produced content, the original content, because they needed a place to put ads. There wasn't a lot of content out there that you could just buy an audience.
Yeah.
So the first thing ad agencies did through Procter and Gamble is propose entertainment that they knew women who working in the home would appreciate, which is
Yeah.
soap operas. And they called them soap operas because you could advertise soap.
Whereas, yeah, they're selling soap.
Yeah, and soap
Yeah, I
is
don't think anybody puts that together. Like, why do we call them soap operas?
yeah.
Like, I think
It's
that's
because they
fascinating.
originally, back after the war, the American home became an industrialized place where
Yeah.
automatic washing machines, dryers, all these refrigerator, they all started being mass produced, and they needed the ancillary tools that you would use to get them to work. One of those things
Yeah.
being washing powder. And there were
Yeah.
3 or 4 brands, and you probably picked one based on, I mean, back then you could probably talk about the fact that, well, I'll get your whites whiter, or I'll keep your
Yeah.
colors brighter. Nowadays, you stand in the aisle at a Walmart or a big box store, you stand in the wash the dry the
Laundry.
laundry thank you, laundry
Yeah.
detergent aisle, and there's 60 different products that all
Yes.
solve the same problem. And
Yes.
so many people, so many brands, and so many marketers are like, well, our message is whiter whites. Actually, I saw one the other day. It was like, well, we're 3 shades whiter whites. Like, 2 things. No one's making their decision based on that. It's just, I mean, every one of these products will solve the problem of getting my clothes clean. I'm
Yeah.
either, more than likely, I'm picking the one that's the on sale or the least
Price.
expensive, or it's based
Yeah.
on
Price
price.
bait. Yes.
And this is where this is a place I call in the book called the plateau of indifference. It's
Yes.
like, I've got so many options. There's nothing you can tell me that'll make me want to spend more money on yours because of a better product result. That starts to get into my idea of appreciated branding, which we can hold off on for now. But the point is, if you're only known in a saturated and commodity category, which I would argue law probably is,
Yeah.
because there are probably hundreds of lawyers in any given market, and the only way you're going to have any confidence in which one you choose is either by throwing a dart or someone recommends you.
Right.
And so that would be, for me, if I were working in that category, I would be looking at, how do I get more people to talk about me and
Yeah.
talk about my story and talk about how I'm different.
Yeah.
Because you never, it's not like you can target people who will need a lawyer, because sometimes it depends on what the practice is, but it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, I got hit by a car and now I'm in the market for a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's not like taxes, for example. At the rounding of every year, 300 million Americans are in the tax market. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to this idea of being in this saturated market. You're standing in the laundry detergent aisle, and it's become a commodity, and they're making that decision based on price. And I saw some recent kind of interesting discussion around how a lot of people have thought that marketing is just this interruption. It's kind of these commercials, or it's trying to interrupt that, if you're kind of that second mover category. So, Tide, let's just say, is the main brand in the laundry detergent aisle. And so all those other guys are trying to catch up to Tide. And so they're trying to interrupt Tide's message. But what I hear you saying, and maybe you can talk more about this, is that's not the way to do it in a long-term sustainable way. Instead of interruption, it's this idea of connection. And so that kind of goes into this appreciated branding idea. And this is where I think I hear a lot of people getting it wrong in these initial conversations I have, is they start by saying, we don't do marketing. We've got a law firm that has been around for 20 years, but we don't do marketing. All our business comes through on referrals. And so what they're telling me, what I hear, is we don't do ads because we think that's smarmy. But we have this 20-year based reputation that people continue to come to us for, and we've got a profitable law firm, so we're doing something right. But I'm not calling that marketing. I'm calling that somehow some other
Word of
thing.
mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. So I usually start by saying, okay, let's back up. Your referrals are marketing. You don't have a system behind it, but you're still doing it. So can you talk a little bit about how that all works and what this appreciated branding is in comparison to how people typically approach it and think of it?
Yeah, I think from a broad stroke perspective, marketing is seen as mass media getting in between people and their content.
100%.
That's been the model since, the 50s or 40s, or I mean, in a
For a
sense,
long time.
it's printed word, I mean, Benjamin Franklin printed newspapers with ads in them. But because media became linear, like radio and TV and that kind of thing, the interruption of, my message before you see your content is a model that started with, Texaco Star Theater, the radio shows they'd put on, and this show brought to you by Texaco gasoline,
Yeah.
so that is not as effective anymore. In fact, it causes a lot of consternation
Yeah.
and it causes a lot of frustration. In fact, Havas did a study. Havas is a big agency network, and this is an off-quoted study that most people, probably a lot of your listeners, would be aware of. But the stat was something like 77% of brands could disappear
Yeah.
and consumers wouldn't care.
Yeah.
And a lot of people walk away with that saying, oh, well, branding is dead then. And
Right.
that is
It's
not,
like, no,
that's
that's not
not
the
what,
takeaway, people.
that's not what that means.
Yeah,
What that means
right.
is nobody's doing it in a way that people would want to care about.
Yeah.
And that's where this appreciated branding idea comes in, because everybody still thinks that the job of marketing and advertising is to interrupt people to try and get them to care about you,
In a really obnoxious way.
and often in a very obnoxious way.
Yeah. A couple years ago, we went to Bhutan, which they outlaw all forms of science and advertisement, which was such a fascinating experience because by the end of the trip, and we were there for 3 weeks, I couldn't tell you the name of the national cigarette or the soda or any major brand that was local to their world. And meanwhile, we're taking these long drives through the mountains, and I'm just looking at the mountains. And so now when we take car rides and things, I look at it so differently because I'm like, ew, why are we? And it's even just intrusive on your daily basis, like the billboards and all that. And I would love to see that change. I don't anticipate that, we'll ever get to that level of change. But when you perceive that as your ad and your approach, and that's once again, this intrusive, interrupting message, you're starting off on a really sour note. Like that's just not, so let's flip it now and let's talk about how to do it right, what this appreciated branding is. And you kind of alluded to that. And what are the things that we should be doing that would be not that?
So brands still need to advertise. And in my view, and what I tried to do for 30 years as an executive creative director, is allow people to feel like they don't want that 30 seconds back, that it was stolen from them, that it was at least worth the 30 seconds that you gave them. And so you try to make it entertaining or somehow interesting or somehow meaningful or some utility or some learning that can come from it, so that you're not just screaming about your product. And oftentimes a product in itself, if it's unique and innovative enough and new, can be that. Uber is
Yeah.
a great example. Uber is a new product, not so new anymore, but they basically reinvented or invented a whole new category, and that there's something new and novel about that. And that in itself spreads the news for it, because advertising at its heart is, it's a crutch. It's a crutch because sometimes products just aren't that good. They don't get talked about. So what they have to do is they spend millions interrupting you to tell you to care about them. And my pivot is, you have to prove that you care about me.
Yeah.
And if you do something that proves you care about me, that's a much more meaningful connection. That's a much more meaningful takeaway that's going to get past a lot of my limbic kind of defenses. And that's the flip.
Yeah.
So
can you give me some examples?
Yeah, for sure.
Because while you're describing that, I was picturing, especially social media ads. I think this is where people see a lot of these examples. There's a lot of them that are obviously using the algorithm, and they're looking at what I'm searching for and then giving me sort of things that are tangentially related. And there's many times when I'm like, oh, that is exactly better than even what I found myself. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you very much. And then there's times when it's just this obnoxious, repetitive thing that I've already said no to 4 other times, and it won't leave me alone. And so there's a big difference there in how I feel about those two brands.
Yeah. Well, I call that in the book transaction chasing. And I feel sorry for the marketing pros who have been put in the position where they're just chasing data and chasing customers all around. I started about 4 months ago just posting content on TikTok under Appreciated Brand. And one of my rants, in fact, I just talked to a potential client yesterday. He's like, that was one of my favorite videos. You were dropping F-bombs like crazy. And I'm like, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I still remember it. But the whole idea is, and this happened to me, and the reason I was dropping F-bombs is because it was frustrating. And I searched for a canoe paddle to buy potentially at some point. And every time I went somewhere else on the internet, a canoe paddle company tried to get me to come to my senses and buy the paddle. And
they're like super in your face.
Yeah.
It's like sort of these toxic ex people in a
It's
relationship where it's like,
you feel like you're being stalked.
Yes. I'm like, we have ended this.
Yeah,
Can you please,
yeah.
we're not part of each other's lives anymore. Please move on.
Right. So in this rant I did, I basically said, why can't you find a way to add value to my life?
Yeah.
You know where I am. You know I might have an interest in this. It may not mean I'm specifically interested in a canoe paddle or even your canoe paddle. Why don't you, if you're going to target me with something, target me with a video on the benefits of wood versus plastic canoe paddles.
Yes.
Target me with a video or a PDF one sheet on the best national parks for canoeing.
That's it.
Target me
something
with
that you didn't even necessarily think of.
No, but it's a value add.
Right. And because you're looking for a canoe paddle, this aligns with that.
That's right.
And so we're going to give you something beyond what you were even searching for. And you're like, oh, with my new canoe paddle, that sounds like the perfect national park that I should be visiting.
Or it could be you definitely figured out that because I search for a canoe paddle, I like the outdoors. From everything from the intricacies of how canoe paddles are made to the best national parks to the different class ratings for rivers and the best time to go in the fall to see the leaves if you're going to canoe in the boundary waters or something, those are things that I would go, oh, thank you. That's right.
But in comparison, what were they actually feeding you? Just like canoe paddle, like with the big price amount on it and just the same generic buy now. Yeah.
And it wasn't the same one. It was just, I think they were thinking, well, he doesn't like that one, so let's serve him this one. It's just like, you don't get it. You're not getting this,
It reminds me of there used to be a trend in law firm sites, and this was way back, maybe at least 10 years ago, where the lawyer would walk out of the screen and it was so creepy. And it's like, can you see me right now? Like, what are you doing? It was so over the line between for whatever reason you're looking for a lawyer, there's a good chance that you want some amount of privacy with whatever you're doing. And so for someone to be walking out of the screen and saying, I see you, in a kind of creepy way, it was so wrong. And I talk about that one all the time. And I wasn't even looking for a lawyer. I was just looking at these sites in comparison. And so I'm thinking from a perspective of a potential client, I mean, maybe it worked for some people, but I don't see that anymore. Nobody's doing that anymore.
Yeah, this is people who don't understand. I mean, the highest paid marketers are the ones who do it themselves and think that they're doing something really creative and breakthrough. And oftentimes they're not really tuned into the tone of what they're doing and how it might apply to their ability to be trusted, their ability to be able to read the room, which is a pretty big deal. But
So how can we take these ideas of this appreciated brand where you're providing, the difference in those canoe paddles, like you're providing all this value, all this information, and you're kind of pulling a potential person who's looking for these canoe paddles as opposed to just, canoe paddles slapping, kind of slapping you across the face with that. How can you kind of take that into, a law firm?
Well, my answer would be, how can you proactively help people?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's basically it. And okay, so let's get into a law firm. What kind of law is it? Is it family law? Okay, family law. What is the number one or number two issue people face? Generational wealth? Is it, death of an elderly person and passing that? I don't know what that is. But what I would figure out is, what can I do to proactively help people ahead of that time? And
Right.
so if you and so a lot of times you can get data to target people with this kind of content, but you're not saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. You're saying,
Yes.
you should know this. It's going to
Yeah.
help you. It's kind of like, by the imprimatur of your being the bringer of that message, means that you will just be looked upon more favorably. When you're in the then you're finally in the mix of kind of going, okay, well, now we need a lawyer.
Yeah.
Those guys that had that one thing that helped us
Mm-hmm.
understand da 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 da.
Yep.
We
Yep.
should call those guys.
Yeah. They knew what they were talking
They knew
about.
what they were talking about, and I kind of
Yeah.
already trust them because they didn't ask me for anything. They
Yes.
just came out
Yes.
and said, "Here's something for you that'll help."
Yeah.
Here's another example. One of my favorite examples of what I would call appreciated branding, and there's a brand of liqueur in Spain called Rua Vieja.
Okay.
And this is in the book. Rua Vieja has, I don't know, 200. They're like the De Kuyper of Spain. They have 200 different flavors of a cordial kind of drink that you'd have. They could have come out and said, "Hey, now we've got one that's great for people with sensitive." What, I can't remember what it is when you don't.
Oh, like gluten
Gluten-free, yeah,
free.
okay, now we've got a
Yeah.
gluten-free. We got a gluten-free one. That's,
Yeah.
we're the guys with the gluten-free one. And they had that, but they didn't do that. What they did is they figured out that human beings take for granted how much time they're gonna have left on this planet,
Yeah.
and they take for granted the fact that they can go have a drink with a friend next week or next month or next year. They'll be there.
Yeah.
And so they went to the Spanish government had a database of life expectancies and all this kind of stuff. So they tied into that, and they created a kind of an interface online where you could go in and see, okay, I'm going to put in my friend and me, and I'm going to figure out exactly how much time we would have to spend together based on our lives, based on everything
Oh my
over
gosh.
the next, until
30
we're
years.
on our
Yeah.
last lap, right?
Yeah.
So it came back that it's just not as much time as you think.
Never. Yeah.
And so the campaign was called "We Have to Spend More Time Together." And
Oh.
they did videos of friends seeing each other who hadn't seen each other in a long time. They sit down, they
Yeah.
each have their drink, but it's not really about that. It's about them
Yeah.
telling a story about how much they didn't realize how fleeting this life is and how that you've got to
Yeah.
spend time with it. Their sales went up 46%.
Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about an emotional connection.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting here thinking, okay, how do we do this emotional how everybody, like, they understand, like, theoretically about, we should be connecting emotionally versus this intrusive, interrupting, whatever. But that's the easy road, like the billboard or just slapping together the ad. But it also feels like when you're at sort of a networking event or talking to other people, and it's that person who won't stop talking about themselves and nobody likes them. Everybody's like, stop. And they just are like in your face. And can I tell you about this? Can I tell you about this thing I did? And a good thing I saw recently was this idea of credentials versus outcomes. And I see this all the time, leading with the outcomes over your credentials. And the easy option, and what I've seen a million times in the past, is that the lawyers, especially if there's a relatively large size team, they care so much about their bio pages and their bio and listing every single case they've tried over the last 30 years, which nobody, including Google, wants to see that, and listing every single credential. And instead of talking to those clients about what the potential outcome is and what it means to them, and leading with that, and then talking about how you've created that kind of outcome in the past. It's this kind of, it sounds like a somewhat minor shift, but it's everything. It seems like it's what you're describing.
Yeah, it's enough about me. What do you think about me versus tell me about yourself. What are
Yeah.
you have to start with values. You have to kind of figure out what are your top values. And
Yeah.
there's a book out by a guy named David Addison, and it's called "We're Not the Same Age Anymore." And it's about the
Yeah.
breakdown of targeting based on demographic stereotypes,
Mm-hmm.
Gen Z, Gen X, whatever. Well,
Yeah.
I'm Gen X, and I care about a lot of stuff my kids care about.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
Gen, I don't even know what they would be. They're
Alpha.
alpha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're leaving a lot of potential business on the table if you're just talking to a generation and making us about what they care about.
Yeah.
There
It's
are
oversimplifying it.
It's oversimplifying it, and it's such a mass marketing targeting kind of shortcut that you don't need anymore because you have data on all these people, and you can
Yeah.
figure out, well, if I'm looking for a canoe paddle, I must value adventure. I
Right.
must value the outdoors. I
Yeah.
must value maybe clean water, maybe clean
Yeah.
air, maybe my values. And if those are my values, then you can create messages and tools and things that would appeal to me as that person. And by
Yeah.
the way, even as a Gen Xer who loves clean air and clean water, so do my kids, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
And,
Exactly.
so it's, there are those who don't really care, and that's their thing.
But maybe they're not looking for a canoe
But maybe
paddle.
they're not looking for a canoe paddle. Maybe they're looking
Yeah.
for, an ashtray. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's their values, and then they can value that however they want. There's no disrespect to that. It's just that's how you talk. There are plenty of people in my generation who still smoke, and
Yeah.
they don't care about getting outside or getting exercise or going for a hike or anything like that. But you can make assumptions based on what people search for and what people potentially shop for to understand what their values are. And when you do, you can create a meaningful experience for them that they will appreciate.
Okay, so give me some examples of what that looks like. I love the canoe paddle example, but what would that campaign look like? And where would they start in terms of that, like a campaign for some type of experience like that? And I mean, if you want to stick with the canoe paddle, I feel like that's a good story. And we were already kind of halfway down that road. Or maybe something more specific to a law firm, but where would they start with that campaign? That, because it does sound to me like you're really taking it to a different level. You're not just saying you're searching for a canoe paddle, here's a canoe paddle. You're really putting more thought and effort and strategy behind it. So there's an extra layer of effort there that I think people need to consider. But where do they start with that?
Well, there's a few different ways to go. I think a big way to leverage appreciation is through the people who already appreciate you.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the stories in the book, a friend of mine took a job as an assistant manager at a local up here in the upper Midwest, a grocery store called Hy-Vee, and they're a pretty good, they're not high-end carpeted grocery store, but they're very good. They're not like, I don't know what a Kroger or a Ralph's or
Yeah.
something. They're up there. And he told me the story as I was explaining that I'm writing this book, and he said, "Well, I got a story for you." He said, I'm 2 weeks into this job. COVID is ramping up, and a woman had ordered groceries, came to pick them up, and they weren't ready. So I went to my boss and I said, "Oh my gosh, what do we do? Like, she's out there." And he
Yeah.
said, "Three things. One, you're going to give her $100 gift card. Two, you're going to send her home and you're going to tell her that we will bring her groceries to her once we shop the order. And number three, you will deliver her groceries to her house, and you'll
Yeah.
help even put them away for her if she wants." That creates a story. And this is
Yeah.
where I talk about, don't talk to me about yourself. Do things that are worth talking about.
Yeah.
And so if you're a firm and you can figure out what can we do that would make the people we're trying to attract appreciate us,
Yeah.
appreciate what we do. And it can be everything from, well, we work pro bono with the
Mhm.
elderly to, whatever, to
Yep.
we spend one day, or look, we spend one day every 6 months at a retirement home to make sure everybody's legal stuff is set up. And we do videos on it, and we tell stories about some of these people and how we help them, and they have emotion behind them, and they have the whole, gosh, what would I have done without you-ness of
Yeah.
them.
Yes.
You find ways to tell those emotional stories, and
Yeah.
oftentimes to create that content, you know, you have to, oh no, find ways to do good in the world, you know?
Well, and let's be honest, like if you're a law firm that's been around for more than 6 months, you should have some of these stories.
Yeah,
Or, let's back up
yeah,
a few steps because you're doing something wrong.
that's right.
But if you are not helping people to a point where they have stories and you now have case studies, and I do get some kickback on this sometimes where there's privacy, things that you need to cover. I get that, but there's ways of speaking about it in a neutral way where you take the names out or you talk broadly about these types of success. There's ways of doing it
Yeah.
that are safe.
Yeah.
And if you don't have these stories, you got to start working on that. That's the first step,
Yeah.
I think. And if you have the stories, let's talk about that. Let's not talk about where you went to college and a case that, some journal article that you wrote 3 years ago. Let's talk about the stories.
Yeah, and I think there's a line in politics that says if you're something like if you're arguing your side, you're losing. Like
Yeah.
it's not about trying to be yet another voice in the cacophony of voices saying we're better than them. That's
Yes.
that's just not going to get you to that, really strong growth. You have
No.
to find a way to tell stories and to be about being a bigger solution in the world. Another great example from my book is Deluxe checks. So
I remember this
yeah,
brand.
Deluxe is they make checks they used to make them, for, I got a checkbook around here somewhere. I don't think I've written a check in years, but
Yeah, I write like 2 a year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine went and took a job there, and I'm like, why would you go take a job at a buggy whip company? I mean, I don't understand. But she's a bit of an iconoclast, and she's just like, no, we're going to figure out how to take this company, this brand, and reinvigorate it for
Wow.
the next
This is an
century.
interesting story because it does, like, my first reaction is that's super outdated.
Yeah.
I was just describing, my daughter and I saw a woman in line at Costco the other day who was writing a check, and I had to explain to her what it was and how it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, it's separate. Costco is an absolute appreciated brand. Costco is a reverse targeted brand. I talk about in the book
Beloved.
about getting reverse targeted means they don't even buy advertising.
No.
The people who love Costco shoot videos of what's new this week at Costco, and they put them online, and it's like irresistible. Some of the most watched content because it's like, what's going to be in there now? So that's another kind of thing, but that's different than the lawyer side. But in terms of a service business, Deluxe check had nothing but a runway ending.
Yeah, totally.
And no hope of takeoff. And so Amanda went in there and she learned, oh, well, they're trying to create some digital tools. Deluxe their sweet spot was always small businesses. And a lot of us don't know that because they got famous just printing checks for everybody's checking account, probably making pretty good money at it. And as eventually happens, the margins on that get smaller and smaller, and then it's unsustainable. You can't cut anymore. You can't, paper costs are paper costs.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, she realized that they spent a lot of money on, I guess, performance marketing, direct mail.
Okay.
And, it would be a thing like, hey, and you get a card or something.
Yeah.
Deluxe check, go to deluxecheck.com, try out our new small business office suite of tools to help you run your small business. And they were not getting a lot of traction because everybody was looking at it as like Deluxe. They're like a check company. What do I care about them? So what she did is she decided that instead of spending money on paid advertising and quote unquote brand advertising, she was going to take that money and she put together a show called Small Business Revolution Main Street.
Oh, cool.
And the show ran for 6 seasons, and it was on Hulu. It was nominated for an Emmy.
Oh.
And she ended up getting guests like Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank and the guy from the show Move That Bus show. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Tyler or something, or Tyler.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of that show either, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And he was a guest kind of leader on those episodes, and they would go to these small towns and they'd go into the small businesses and say, we're here to help.
Nice.
We're here to help you set up a better way to do business, a better way to sustain your business. I know you're getting eaten alive by these big box stores that are coming down on the edge of town. Main streets are dying. We don't want that to happen. We're here to help.
Wow.
And they created these shows based on, basically being followed around like it was Real Housewives or something, but it was about building these businesses back up.
Kind of doing a refresh and trying to like improve efficiencies and find.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like the There was one show like that was like they would go into hotels and do that kind of thing, or restaurants and
Yeah,
update.
yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Restaurant Impossible.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Robert Irvine.
that's it. Yeah, that's right. I used to love watching those things.
We did too. Yeah.
It's like the ultimate renovation show,
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and that's in a sense what they're doing is a renovation show on how to renovate your business and get it working better. And here's the tools, and here's things that aren't part of the tools, but things you should be thinking about when you do your business. And a lot of people watch these, a lot of small business people watch these, because everybody, no matter where you are, is always trying to be better tomorrow than they were today at whatever they're trying to do.
Yes.
And that's what attracted them. I could learn something about that. If I can get my business working better, I'll have a better future. I'll have a better whatever. I can turn it over to my kids, whatever. And that's why this show was so popular, because Deluxe wasn't putting Deluxe in your face. It just said presented by Deluxe. That's about it. The next time she said we did a direct mail drop after like the first season or whatever, our response went up 11x.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
And you're never going to get that from interrupting people telling them how great your brand is.
Yeah. Yeah. The obnoxious method.
You are helping them. You're actively going, well, here's how I can help you. The time, and by the way, in the soap opera era, that's all they were doing. We can help you. We have this powder that goes with your machine. That's how we're helping you. But that's all just noise now, because categories are saturated. So you have to find the way to break through is to show that you care. Yeah. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So it is time for the book review.
Oh.
And if you have not checked it out, there is a whole library on the podcast part of the website where we have all the books that all of the guests have recommended. So you can sort it by category, and it's really well done, if I do say so myself. So Reid, what is the book that you're going to recommend for our library today?
Well, there's a lot of them. I toyed with one called This Is Strategy by Seth Godin, which I think is amazing.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
Maybe you've already got that one. The one I suggested was The Untethered Soul.
Yes.
And the reason I suggested it is because it's been incredibly helpful to me just in my kind of personal life and in my relationships. And even, I asked my wife to read it because I think she could benefit from it too. And she did. And our whole relationship has gotten better because we're just like, we don't have to grab onto these feelings. It's a train that's just going by. Let's just let it go by. Let it go by. It's not defining who you are. It's not something you need to give energy to. Even though you might feel compelled to do that.
Okay, so tell me, what's the basic premise of the book? Because I've had this one on my list for a while, but what's the premise, and then what is it that you really liked about it?
What I liked about it is the idea of the untethered soul is essentially the events that happen in your life only define you in as much as you let them. And so and I did a post on TikTok about this the other day, if someone makes you feel bad about yourself, it's not your fault. It's not their fault. It's your fault. To give that energy, are you going to give that your precious time, dwell on that and let it make you feel that way? You don't have to. You have as a matter of fact, I was just watching a clip. I didn't watch the whole thing, but you might be a Taylor Swift fan. I'm
I have two girls.
There you go. So you're probably, I know a little bit about her music, but I've learned more about her since her and Travis Kelce started, because I'm a football fan. But so she was on his podcast.
Yes, it was kind of a big deal.
It was kind of a big deal. And I haven't seen the whole thing, but I heard one quote that I thought, oh my gosh, that's why she is who she is. And she said, treat your energy like it's a luxury item.
Yes.
Don't let people afford it. They can't.
Yeah, not everybody can afford it.
Not everybody can afford it.
Yes. Yes. I feel like this is one of the quotes of the year that, everybody's going to have that recap at the end of the year, and they're going to come back to that one.
And that's,
not everybody can afford you. And I feel like that goes so perfectly with this idea of the brand and elevating yourself and whatever, and recognize that you should be at that elevated message and everything. And you shouldn't be speaking down to the people who are nitpicking and penny pinching and everything and looking for that intrusive, cheap ad. You should be speaking at a higher level.
Absolutely. And I think if you're asking for people to give you their energy, you're much more predisposed to get it if you're doing something that's giving and proactive and problem solving
Yeah.
and non-expectant of
Yes.
anything. That's
Yeah.
where there's a line. Yeah, he says Roy Spence of Texas ad agency GSD&M, and he wrote this book called "It's Not What You Sell, It's What You Stand For." And he says what that is it's your reason for being that goes beyond making money. It
Yeah.
almost always results in making more money than you ever thought possible.
100%.
Yeah.
And I say a lot of times, go back to the reason you even went to law school. Like, where did it start? Where is it in your core? And start from there. And know that is the reason that you made a lot of the choices about, your practice area, the kind of work you're doing, all of that. And start from there in terms of what people are looking for and then how you kind of provide that solution. But where you really are feeling it too, like what matters to you. And people are going to feel that right away if you care about it or if it's just sort of performative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good distinction because I talk about not only what you do, but what you solve. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is my daughter's 20 and she's going back to college next week. And I'm always like, "Hey, will you watch a movie with us tonight?" And she's just like, "No, I'm going to be talking to my boyfriend or
Yeah. You're
whatever."
not cool enough.
Yeah. And I finally got her to watch the movie, and we watched Aaron Brockovich, which I hadn't
Oh,
watched in 30
cute.
years. And I'm
Yes.
watching, I'm going, Aaron Brockovich was off the radar being
Yeah.
paid to proactively go help solve a big problem for people. And it resulted in that firm getting
Going huge.
multi-million dollar settlement and solving more big problems out there that people need help for. And they don't know how to navigate the legal system, and they don't know how to get to that place where they're made whole or someone's protecting them or someone's looking out for them.
Yeah.
God, what a great, I mean, think
What a
about
great story.
what a
Aaron
great
Brockovich.
profession if you
Yes.
can
If you do it
point your
right.
efforts toward how do I use what I do. That's all I'm trying to do in my career now. I
Yes.
know how to do a lot of different things, particularly with marketing. How do I go out there and help people be better versions of themselves?
Yeah.
That's kind of my life goal.
Yeah, think about it. Aaron Brockovich is a household name now.
Yeah,
Before that case, according to the movie, and who knows if this was kind of over dramatized, but that firm was barely scraping it together.
that's
Like
right.
that, in
Yeah.
the movie, they're like
Yeah.
not super
Yeah.
wealthy and
He said
not
something like, I've managed to put away about $1 million over 30 years, and I'm getting ready to go spend it. And now I'm
right.
spending it on all this stuff you're telling me to do. And
Right. And think about the difference, and not just in monetary success, but like you were describing, the kinds of cases, the kind of work, and everything that came because they took those big leaps, but also followed what she really cared about. And so, come back to all of that and then connect that emotional message to all of it. And that is going to set you off on a totally different path where you're not just competing, head to head with these sort of low level players. So, Reid, what is the thing that people should do first when they're done listening to this complete episode and they listen to the whole thing all the way to the end and give me the full download? But once they're done and they've kind of got all this thought about, kind of connecting to this emotional connection idea instead of being, just an interrupting. There's this joke about an interrupting cow that one of my kids says, and I just keep thinking about this interrupting cow. What's the first thing they should do to not be that interrupting cow?
if you're spending money on marketing, I would take 5-10% of it and figure out something you could do that you can use what essentially is a free distribution system called social media
Yeah.
that will get the exposure it deserves by the virtue of the quality of its content.
Yes.
And it will be a win or learn situation. You will either strike it gold and go viral, which it's like trying to pick a hit record. You don't know ahead
Yeah.
of time. I mean, there are certain things we can calibrate to try and propagate that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're going to have content that you can point to and that people can watch to get to know you.
Yeah.
I have been shocked. I have been on TikTok now, and I'm not advocating people go start a TikTok channel or whatever, but I've been on TikTok for 5 months, and I'm getting more followers. I get complimented every day on the content. I try to help people. I try to give them advice on how to do their marketing and all that. I'm not expecting anything in return, but
Yeah.
there's a saying in marketing is be known before you're needed.
Yes.
And if you can be known before you're needed for something, then that's important. So, for example, could you take on a pro bono case and have them follow you around like it's, it is a little show, and do
Yeah.
little showlets about it, and
Yeah.
you'll probably get some fans who want to watch it, and you'll
Yeah.
probably get people who will want to share it. You'd obviously have to edit around, like you said, some of the privacy stuff, but
Right.
get the cameras in the room during the first. Tell me about your problem. Tell me how, this is one of the things we try to do with our clients. This is
Yes.
one of the, get the story out there, show people behind the curtain of who you are and how you
Yeah.
work and how your values are, and that you care. And
Yeah.
that's going to get you the best possible, no pun intended, hearing for
Yes.
those who may want to or may need you in the future. So find a way to be known, and when you're needed, you'll be on the list.
And tell your own Aaron Brockovich story. The reverse of that, that interrupting cow version that a lot of people do, and they try to do this shortcut, is I've seen this countless times where they set up a photo shoot and it's this fake photo shoot and they're sitting in a conference room and they have the receptionist come in and pretend to be a client. And you can tell in those fake photos that they're fake. Like everyone can tell instantly, as opposed to what you're describing, which is real content. You're not setting up this fake scenario. You're not doing a fake photo shoot, which is the super cheap, easy, fast, cheater kind of process. But what you're describing is, within reason, kind of create this content from stuff that's actually happening. Real stuff.
So you could go, so there's a couple of guys that are great examples of this on TikTok. So there's this one guy, he owns a luxury jet travel business.
Yeah.
And there's a little short video he does every day, and it's worth watching because it's just like, oh, I can't believe people spend money like this. So he's like, hey, what's up? And someone on the end of the phone says, and some of it's muted out because they don't want to say it. Okay, so you're in Fiji and you need to get to Bali. Okay, I have a Gulfstream. I have a whatever,
Yeah.
3 different planes. How much room you need? Oh, I've only got 3 people, but we do want to make sure it's got Fiji water on it, or whatever. And
Right.
I mean, was one of the comments. He's like, so this one, I can have it to you. You can leave in 2 hours. I've got a crew a half hour south. You're going to fly. And I think it was Seattle to Fiji or something. So I've got a
Yeah.
plane, and the plane you want is in Portland. I got to get my guys out there. It'll take them an hour and a half to get on the plane, get it going. They'll fly it up to Seattle, pick you up. They'll have their Fiji water, and you'll be off to Fiji. And the cost for that is $265,000. And then the response is, oh, that's not bad.
Oh my gosh.
And so if I were a lawyer, God, the stories they must have.
Seriously. Exactly.
So
exactly.
have someone come up to you and go, hey, tell me a great courtroom story, and
Exactly.
keep it.
Yeah. Or blurb certain
NDA.
parts out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tell me that story. There's another guy who's, I think it's his daughter, and I think he's Indonesian or whatever. He's American. And I say that to help find him if you look for him. But he's always sitting behind a desk doing trading and all this stuff. And all of a sudden someone come up and he'll be like, oh, hey, what's up? Oh, I was going to ask you, what do you think about the tariffs? And he'll give you the non-political, here's the deal. I'm not saying this because I'm pro anything or anti anything.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you how this is all going to work
From an economic
perspective. He's millions of views.
Yeah,
He's become this
exactly.
kind of thought leader. So it doesn't take a lot of effort.
No.
Post 1 or 2 things a day or 4 or 5 things a week. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some interesting story during COVID. And I know you're probably like, hey, we got to go.
You're fine.
during COVID, for fun, I started a thing called Mad Stories. And I asked friends from advertising to send me a written story of some silly thing that they went through. Like one of mine was, I got on a plane in LA to fly home to Minneapolis, and right before the door closed, John Mayer and Jessica Simpson came in and sat right in front of me.
Nice.
And they were literally dating right in front of me, and very, very much dating. And I had just gotten off the phone with my assistant, who said, hey, the suite at the hockey arena here is open if you want to bring any clients or you want to bring anybody. And I said, well, the show's tomorrow night. And she was like, I said, well, who's coming? She said, well, John Mayer. I said,
oh my gosh.
I said, oh, okay. Well, when is the show? Oh, it's tomorrow night. Oh gosh, I'm never going to get a client, but I might just take my wife. We might just go just for fun.
Yeah.
And so that's what we planned. And then next thing I know, I get off the phone, I get on the plane, on comes John Mayer. He's flying from LA to Minneapolis to do his show.
Yeah.
So he's standing up and we were in the front of the plane. I flew a lot, so I got upgraded a lot. And he's standing up there and he's talking up one of the flight attendants. He likes her necklace or something. So I'm like, I gotta go up. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of his, but I
Yeah.
very much respect his guitar playing. I mean, it's amazing. He's amazing
Right.
talent.
Yeah.
And since I realized I'm going to be going to his show the next night, I thought, oh, I should go. So I went up to him and I said, hey, I'm going to your show tomorrow night. And he said, yeah, so am I. And I was just like, I just kind of skulked away, went to the bathroom.
Wow.
And I was just like, he made me feel, I mean, talk about, the untethered soul. He made me feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
And I should not give him that permission. Next hour thinking, what should a good retort have been to that?
How much of our lives do we spend doing that?
And so I finally came up with it, and it was long after he had gotten off the plane. But I should have said, I bet you'll have better seats than I do.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway.
Okay, awesome. I love these stories, and I feel like that's where it comes back to. Like, that's what it all comes back around to these stories and the connection and that emotional connection, as opposed to being intrusive and interrupting. And that's where you start. And definitely take a look at all of that. But then also, you were talking about, take a few minutes and see where you can do that on social media and put those stories out there and use that as the starting point. I think that's really a great idea.
I think it's worth doing. And, there's a saying is the day you need a community is not the day to start one. So, I mean, or the old saying, or the day you need a shade from a tree is not the day to plant the seed or something like that.
Exactly.
It's the same kind of basic thing. And
that is just the basic approach with marketing, though, is everybody wants this golden ticket. And we even talked briefly about how the conversation right now in marketing is AI and SEO, and everybody thinks it's this shortcut to everything and that, can start a business today and have it. But this is the same thing people said at the beginning of the internet. And at the end of the day, marketing is marketing. And yes, there's some tools out here and we can do things a little bit faster with AI. But at the end of the day, it takes years to build a brand and the reputation and, get these things out there. And that's not going to change. We're humans. That's just how humans work.
Well, and the other point is the days of being able to buy someone else's audience and have the people watching it care about what you're saying are kind of atrophying. They're not as effective as they used to be. You need to find reasons for people to care about you. And that's the beauty of these social media things, is that people are looking for reasons to be entertained and get the story. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All of the ones that I follow, for the most part, have a very compelling and very unique story where I could summarize it in a sentence or a sentence and a half. And that's, what you should be aiming for.
Yep.
Reid Holmes is a marketing therapist and his brand is House of Homes. We will link to everything on the show page with the show notes, in the transcript, all of that good stuff, including the book, which was The Untethered Soul. We'll have that on the show page as well. Thank you so much for being here. That was such a fun conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. And you can go to reidholmes.com. You can get a free chapter of my book.
Awesome.
You can subscribe to my newsletter, which comes out every Friday, and it's called Oxygen, and it's meant to be uplifting and not a chore.
Value driven.
So there's that. And if you need any help, I have a thing called the appreciation model. If anybody needs help,
we will link to all of that stuff, your brand, your link, your website, and your book, Appreciated Branding, as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Counsel Cast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.